Thank you very much to all of you for being here today, also to everyone that is following online. Hi, Lina. Hi, Yayu. And yes, this, as you know, is the fifth appointment of this edition of the Environmental Sustainability and International Cooperation Seminar. And my name is Harumi Kato. I'm a postdoctoral researcher here at the University of Trento. And actually, I would like to thank the organizing team for inviting me to moderate this event. And I'm especially happy because the topic of today's seminar is planning for transformative change with nature-based solutions. And basically, we will have three speakers that is going to bring different perspectives and complementary perspectives on how MBS can be planned, governed, but also especially prioritized in response to urban water and climate challenges. So this is going to be the main focus of today. Before we begin, as you know, these seminar are going to be recorded and they are also going to be posted on YouTube. I don't know if there's any other thing that I need to say that is urgent, but if not, then I would like to very briefly present our three speakers of today. I have with me Dr. Bilal Adem-Ismail. Then we're also going to have the presentation by Yayu Sheng and finally by Dr. Lina Suleiman. But I will explain a little bit more about their bio in the next few seconds. So our first speaker then is going to be Dr. Bilal Adem-Ismail. He is an environmental engineer and researcher at the Center for Global Mountain Safeguard Research at the EURAC in Bolton. His research focuses on planning MBS and green infrastructure for sustainable urban transformation with special attention to water-related challenges. So he holds a PhD on ecosystem services for watershed management and planning and a master in science in civil engineering from the University of Trento. Actually, Bilal was my colleague a few years ago. He has held postdoctoral positions at Drew University Bochum, the KTH Royal Institute of Technology, and again, as I was saying, the Planners for Ecosystem Services and Urban Sustainability Lab here at the University of Trento. So without further ado, I would like to give the floor to Bilal, and again, thank him for being here today with us.
Thank you, Harry.
I just give the okay for the. We can shift this all the way down there.
No, it's okay. Good afternoon. Thank you, Harumi, for this kind introduction. It feels yesterday that I defended my thesis here, but it was actually 10 years ago. It was 2016, and I still feel the same pressure of that day, so talking to you. So I hope you will understand if I get emotional during the speech. So today I'll be talking about this strategic planning of nature-based solutions for water security with a specific case study in Asmara.
Sorry for interruption, but can I ask for raising the voice because I hardly can hear you?
Okay. Now, can you hear me?
Yeah, it's much better.
Better. Okay. Okay. So this is part of a project called MBS for Water that is funded. It's an interdisciplinary 2-year project funded by the province of Bolton and implemented together with a few partners. So we are GLOMOS, but also we have the Asmara Heritage Project. It's a UNESCO World Heritage Project in Asmara, Eritrea. And and also the Ministry of Land, Water and Environment in Eritrea, particularly the Water Resource Department. Yeah, so I think Harumi has already introduced me, but yeah, these are a few of the projects that I have been involved in, mainly dealing with planning of nature-based solutions for addressing societal challenges. And so briefly about my team. So we are called the GLOMOS. We are based in EURAC in Bolzano. And this is it's called the Center for Global Mountain Safeguard Research. And this is a joint research program between the United Nations University, Institute of Environment and Human Security, and EURAC. So this joint research program started a few years ago in 2019, and now it has been renewed last week for another 10 years. And the core mission is really to carry out cutting-edge research and bridge science policy and practice for safe, sustainable mountain livelihoods globally. And so within this framework, the MBS for Water project brings the urban perspective into the picture. Yeah. So specifically, the aim of the project is to develop a strategic planning approach for MBS. And it has three specific objectives. First is to kind of get a systematic understanding of the challenges and opportunities together with local experts and stakeholders. And second step is to co-develop together with them some spatial MBS scenarios. And lastly, to assess the multidimensional impacts of the different scenarios. So the premise is that when we think about cities, we think about the challenges that they bring, starting from sprawl. So cities have been associated with sprawl that fragments landscapes and with impacts on biodiversity. They are also associated with consumption or overconsumption of resources, particularly water. The issue of pollution and with impacts on health. And finally, last but not least, issues of urban heat island and flooding risks, which are exacerbated by changing climate conditions. Of course, it's not all doom and gloom. Cities have also a lot of opportunities. There are centers of social transformation due to the increased awareness of urban residents. There are also centers of knowledge and innovation that can help us identify novel solutions to our challenges. And they have this capacity of reducing our impact. So within this context of challenges and opportunities, we see the role of strategic spatial planning with nature-based solutions as a key driver that can support the transformation, the transformational change that is needed for both people and nature. Of course, you all know what nature-based solutions are. These are solutions as defined by the EU Commission that are inspired and supported by nature, and they provide simultaneously environmental, social, and economic benefits. But a definition that kind of I find more perhaps interesting is this one by our colleague, Albert, who defines them as solutions that address a specific societal challenge. It could be urban heat island, flooding, biodiversity, by utilizing ecological processes of spatial green and blue infrastructures that are in the landscape. Yeah? And they have to be embedded within viable governance and business models. Of course, those solutions provide ecosystem services that help us address the specific societal challenge, but also they provide co-benefits. But then when it comes to planning those kind of MBS, we see three key challenges for spatial planning. So the first one is how to create unconventional plans that go beyond the status quo to achieve our development goals while preserving and enhancing biodiversity. The second challenge is how to manage the complex trade-offs between different goals related to different scenarios. Yeah. And finally, this planning has to be carried out in a context of participation of key stakeholders and experts. So one interesting approach for that can support planning in addressing those challenges is this geodesign. So it's defined as a design and planning method which tightly couples creation of design proposals with impact assessment. And here today with us, we have one of the leading experts of geodesign, Gustavo. and the basic idea of geodesign is that technology or digital tools can help us improve the design process by incorporating this real-time assessment of impacts. And this hopefully would allow the participants to come up with designs that are supported, let's say, by objective information in terms of the assessment of their impacts. So this is a 6-step geodesign process that we have developed over the years and have been applied in different contexts, from river restoration in Germany to neighborhood scale planning in Stockholm. And we would like now to apply it in the context of planning MBS for water security in Asmara. The process consists of these 6 key steps, where you start by defining the setting and getting a systematic understanding of the challenges and opportunities. Step 2, you develop a different scenario storyline of the type of futures that you would like to achieve. The step 3 is a suitability analysis, where you explore your landscape in terms of its potential. And then the steps 4 and 5 are the actual kind of geodesign, where you are in a participatory setting, changing land uses, and at the same time assessing the impacts, so that you can iteratively come up with a final land use design. And the last step is, of course, reflection on the process together with the participants. So each step has its own output. So it could be a shared agenda, a scenario storyline, or different land use scenarios. And from a process perspective, we could argue that each step contributes to the co-creation process, and we would be able, or we should be able to assess the contributions in terms of the perception of the participants of the different steps of the process and its outputs. So to what extent each step and output is perceived as credible, salient, and legitimate, and to what extent the different steps contribute in terms of the translation, communication, and mediation functions of boundary management. So what I will do now, I will guide you through the process, how we implemented it in the case study. So of course, these are some preliminary studies that because we are halfway through the project. So let me take you to Asmara. This is, and you have an aerial view of the city, a city of more or less 500,000 inhabitants, 2,300 meters above sea level. And do you have internet connection? Yeah. Doesn't work. Okay, anyway, yeah, I had a video of the, also of the, but it's okay. I had a video of the watershed just to give you an idea, because the city of Asmara gets its water from 2 watersheds that are to the north and south of the city. Yeah, So this is the region where Asmara is located, the Zuba Ma'akal, and within the region we have the metropolitan area, the Greater Asmara area. Yeah, and so Asmara relies on these two watersheds, the Toker in the north and the Mainefhe, and which supply a system of dams and treatment plants that serve the city. So as part of the first step of understanding the challenges, we first of all we started with a quantitative analysis of the challenges in terms of understanding what is the long-term water scarcity dynamics in the region, and so here the aim was to quantify the long-term changes in terms of key hydrological variables, to characterize the frequency, severity, propagation of different droughts, and to assess what is the sustainability of surface water. So for this, we implemented the geoframe modeling tools. Some of you might be familiar with it. It's a modeling tool developed here by the group of Ricardo Rigon. And what we realized was that, first of all, in terms of climatic and hydrological trends, so there is no major change in terms of the precipitation, but there is a significant increase of temperature. Looking at the climatic and hydrological anomalies, we see that so we mapped the different standardized index in terms of SPI, SPEI, and SSI. And what you could see is that starting from the 1980s, you have persistent drought conditions in the area. And when you look in terms of the annual and cumulative water volumes, what you see is that there is very high interannual variability. And again, you see the decreasing trend. So basically what the hydrology is telling us is that water availability, so the margin between the natural water availability and the demand is narrowing down. So the next step was to develop these impact chains. So we wanted to characterize the key determinants of water scarcity in the region by looking at the key hazards, so the decrease in precipitation and increase in temperature, and how this translates into risk by affecting the different exposed systems. So for this, we use this impact chain approach, where starting from the three key hazards, we analyzed what are the impacts at the different system levels. So at the watershed level, at the infrastructure level, and at the users level. And what are the vulnerabilities that might worsen or might make the impacts even higher. So this work was done based on review of the literature, but then this was also done in a co-production setting together with key experts and stakeholders in Asmara. So we had 32 experts from different ministries, different sectors, and we analyzed the impacts and vulnerabilities at different system levels to finally come up with this systematic picture of all the drivers of the risk of water scarcity for households and industries and institutions in Asmara. So What the diagram is telling us is how those hazards translate into different impacts. The most interesting part is perhaps are the vulnerabilities, where you see issues from degradation of landscape to insufficient water storage to lack of consumption data or unequal distribution of infrastructures. So what is really interesting about this approach is that it really brings a systematic perspective to the challenge of water security. Not just the physical lack of water, but all the other socio-economical aspects that compound, that make the risk even higher. And more interestingly, it gives us also entry point for identifying solutions that we can apply at different scales, including, of course, nature-based solutions. So the next step is, once we know, or at least we have a systematic and shared understanding of the challenge, is to define or to identify some scenario storylines of the different features that we would like to have. And for this, we use the quadrant method, where you have in the first quadrant the level of investment in water infrastructures. So we could consider the current state is where we have very low investment in water infrastructures and aging infrastructure. And the second quadrant is the use of MBS. Of course, for addressing our challenges, we can rely or not on MBS. And depending on these two dimensions, we have the status quo, which we find built but brittle. And you have these green patches where you have, again, low investment infrastructure, but an extensive use of MBS. Another scenario is where we rely totally on gray infrastructure to meet the water security needs of the city. And finally, this, of course, this gray-green synergy where you have high investments on the infrastructure, but also support that with an extensive use of MBS. So we asked the participants to identify different solutions for the water security challenge, both technical solutions, MBS solutions, and policy-based solutions, and to assess each type of solution based on its relevance for the case study, but also its feasibility, so that we could then identify the set of measures that, according to the participant, are the most relevant for the case study. Time-wise, how are we? Fine. So now going back at the, so what we wanted to do was also to assess the perception of the participants of how like the different steps are considered credible in terms of their scientific credibility and robustness, but also salient or relevant for the problem at hand, and legitimate in the sense that they take into account different perspectives in a fair and unbiased way. And these are, let's say, some of the outputs of the based on the perception of the participants. And you could see that, yeah. So 81% rated the whole the process as highly credible, 86% as salient, and 95% as legitimate. So of course, this is based on the 32 participants that we had, but it already gives us an idea of how this kind of approach can contribute in terms of this perception, and this gives us that are higher chances of being able to implement also this solution. Yeah. So this is where we are now in terms of the process. The next step would be to really implement or to go to the step 4 and 5, where we will develop a digital platform and allow, let's say, the stakeholders, the participants, to design some different land use scenarios. So how does this work? So this is the concept that we have. So we have the two, let's say, the two watersheds, and here you have, let's say, the different interventions or nature-based solutions that you can implement. So you have reforestation, riparian buffer restoration, agroforestry practices, terracing and protection. And here you have this dashboard with indicators. So where you would see the impact of any intervention on different ecosystem services. So water yield, flood mitigation, crop productivity, grazing, recreation, and biodiversity. And so these are global indicators, but you also have some local indicators, which will tell you what is the impact of the intervention in different sub-basins that you are designing. So, and this kind of platform allows the participant to really explore and strategically plan different nature-based solutions by deciding on the weights that you would like to apply to different MBS, and of course, because you have the real-time impact assessment, you are able to discuss among your colleagues and to come up with a hopefully an agreed final or more than one spatially explicit MBS scenarios. Well, and this is basically the science that is behind it, yeah. So, so there are suitability equations for the different interventions, different rules. There are a lot of assumptions, and actually, it's more interesting to explore those assumptions and data together with the stakeholders than the final, let's say, output per se. So to conclude, so we kind of started from proposing this 6-step strategic approach for planning MBS. So we have already implemented the two steps by combining quantitative, like in terms of hydrological modeling, and qualitative impact chain-based, let's say, assessment. And this systematic understanding of the challenges helped us to develop different scenario storylines of how the future could play out for these two watersheds. And we are now in the phase of developing the digital platform. So tomorrow we will be testing the first version that Gustavo prepared. And in June, we will apply it together with the stakeholders. And throughout the process, we have been, let's say, assessing the contribution of the steps to, in terms of the boundary management, so the credibility, saliency, and legitimacy. And yeah, so very much looking forward to the next workshop, but hopefully also to see those solutions being actually implemented on the ground. I hope this kind of gives you an idea of where. So this is. I take the opportunity to thank our, let's say, stakeholders. Very few women. There's something that we need to work on. But yeah. Thank you. So here you have some references if you would like to go in depth.
So thank you very much, Bilal, for your presentation, which of course gives us a very clear perspective on how can we co-produce and co-design nature-based solutions through the use, of course, of digital tools, especially in very complex urban areas with highly interconnected vulnerabilities. But we will discuss more about this at the end, because now we're going to focus a little bit more on a comprehensive framework that is going to be used to prioritize native-based solutions based on multi-criteria analysis and ecosystem services-based spatial approach. So for this, I would like to welcome our second speaker, who is Yayu Sheng from TU Dartmouth University. Yayu is a PhD student in the chair of landscape planning. His academic background includes a Master of Science in Spatial Planning from TU Dartmouth, an exchange program in Spatial Development and Infrastructure and Systems at ATH Zurich, and a Bachelor in Engineering in Urban Planning from Guangdong University of Technology. He has also worked as a student research assistant in the chair of Environmental Analysis and Planning at Ruhr University Bochum, and his research interest lies at the intersection of spatial planning, ecosystem services, nature-based solutions, and geo-artificial intelligence. So his current work is actually focusing on this, on how to support the planning and design of nature-based solutions through trustworthy, good AI to foster sustainable and resilient urban futures. So with this introduction, I would like to give the floor to Yayu. Thank you very much for being here with us today, and you can share your screen whenever you want.
Hello, can you see my screen now?
Yes, we see it perfectly well.
Okay. Yeah, and thank you very much for having me today. And yeah, my topic is my name is Jiayu Zhang, from TU Dortmund, and my topic is prioritizing nature-based solutions for an equitable distribution of ecosystem service. A building scale spatial multi-criteria analysis in Stockholm. So it's about it's also a part of the strategic planning of nature-based solutions, and it's more about the methods of NBS planning. And my collaborators of this study include Chiara Kolinovis from University of Trento and Dietmar Kuhn from TU Dortmund, Ulla Mötberg from KTH, and finally, Vlad Adam Messner from URAC Research. Yeah, and let's get started. Starting point is the question, the challenge in urban planning. So, urban planners or urban managers always have limited resources. So, when the resources is limited, where exactly in the city should we allocate nature-based solutions to maximize both ecological and social benefits? So, starting from this question, we have spatial multi-criteria analysis. It is widely used in research to prioritize or to firstly to synthesize multiple ecosystem service assessment and then translated it into priority maps or suitability maps for NBS implementation. However, those existing research are rarely embedded in real life or real world practice or planning process. And this reveals a challenge that we need to support urban planning with more credible and actionable information for a more efficient and equitable NBS implementation. So we have identified three methodological gaps behind this challenge, in applying SMCA to MBS planning. The first gap is integrating ES demand while accounting for social vulnerability to promote environmental justice. Although the importance of integrating ES demand as a key component is widely acknowledged, but it often results in the repeated use of population data across different ES assessments. So these applications not only introduce possible correlations among the evaluation criteria, but also fail to account for different vulnerability levels across social groups. So there lack a robust framework to address distributed justice. And then the second gap is capturing the MBS specific multifunctionality in a scientifically robust way. We know the multifunctionality of nature-based solutions is it's a key characteristic of the MBS, namely each MBS can provide several ecosystem service as benefits or co-benefits. And the multifunctionality of MBS is also widely acknowledged, but the weighting schemes in the existing SMCA research is normally rely on eco-weighting or stakeholder-based weighting. So there is a lack of weighting schemes that reflect the multifunctionality of MBS in a scientifically robust way. The third gap is operationalizing sensitivity analysis for actionable decision support. Sensitivity analysis is essential for evaluating the robustness of SMCA results, but it is also largely neglected in existing. And this omission reveals that lack of appropriate methods to make the results of sensitivity analysis operational and directly applicable to support a final decision. So to address those gaps, the three gaps, we have proposed a four-step SMCA framework. The first step is problem definition to define relevant planning objectives and assessment criteria. The second step is criteria preparation. Normally, we need to prepare ES-based criteria. So preparing spatially explicit criteria through multiple analytical methods. And the third step is synthesis to combine those criteria by weighting and then generate priority maps. And the final step is sensitivity analysis to assess the robustness of the priority maps. And then finally, we can conclude final recommendations. And we have test and apply the proposed SMCA framework on a case study. The testing ground is ScarpNet. ScarpNet is a district in southern Stockholm. It plans for the densification to accommodate a growing population, which poses a considerable threat to the existing ES. Therefore, it is ideal study area for exploring how suitable MBS can be strategically implemented to reconcile development pressures with environmental sustainability. And here is and notably, we have a data leap here. We employed a high resolution, so to say 5-meter biotope map combined with building footprints to enable building scale analysis. So this is the overlook of the study. For step 1, problem definition, we have selected 4 NBS, including installing green roofs, desealing parking lots and squares, creating new ponds, and developing pocket parks. So we selected those NBS for promoting a more equitable and resilient urban future. And second step, criteria preparation. We have selected 4 ecosystem surveys, including habitat quality, urban cooling, urban flood risk mitigation, urban nature-based recreation. And in addition to ES-based criteria, we integrated demographic criteria that indicate the spatial distribution of population and socially vulnerable groups, which addressing the gap 1 that we just mentioned. And we also incorporate MBS-specific spatial constraints to improve the actionability of the results. And for step 3, we aggregate those criteria maps by weighting and masking them. And this step, we use a qualitative criteria classification combining with analytical hierarchy process (AHP) to give a weight to the criteria maps to reflect the MBS multifunctionality in a scientifically robust way. And in the end, in the step 4, we operationalize the sensitivity analysis, go beyond just observing the outcome fluctuations. We overlapped the crop priority maps with varying weighting preferences to identify the no regret sites for MBS implementation. Now here are the results. This is the results for from step 2. We got the ES distribution maps. And this is more, I think this is the most important part. And then in the step 3, we got the high priority area for the 4 specific MBS. And at the right side, you can see the high priority area for installing green roofs. We can see how the exact buildings that in high priority for installing green roofs. So for step 4, we after sensitivity analysis, we can see the high priority areas, no matter the hold true, no matter the weighting preferences. So you can notice the very right side, the blue circle spot. There is a spot that indicate high priority for both desealing parking lots and develop pocket parks. So this reveals a synergistic solution, synergistic planning strategy that can generate we can plan a MBS in the same site for many co-benefits. So this also answer the question that we have posed in the very beginning. So where exactly in the cities should we allocate nature-based solutions to maximize the ecological and social benefits? So in the end, this study advances actionable knowledge by translating complex landscape science into spatially explicit guidance through an accessible approach. It offers planners and policymakers a transferable, data-driven, and equity-oriented tour to integrate areas into cities for more resilient and equitable futures. Thank you. That's all. That's all for my presentation.
Thank you very much, Yayu, for your presentation. And again, we see this core concept of equity, not only in the way we co-design and co-create nature-based solutions, but also how can we especially prioritize them in urban areas, which is why this idea of distributive justice, of making sure the vulnerable population receive the benefits of MBS is so important when we're thinking about this concept. But now we're moving a little bit away from spatial design and geodesign to focus more on what is actually preventing the adoption of nature-based solutions in formal planning documents. So for this, I would like to introduce our last presenter of today, which is Dr. Lina Suleiman. She is a docent in urban and regional planning with a specialization in planning for sustainability transitions at the KTH Royal Institute of Technology in Stockholm. She holds a doctoral degree in infrastructure, specializing in planning and implementation from KTH, and has over a decade of experience as a senior researcher in the Department of Urban Planning and Environment. Her research focuses on sustainability transitions and environmental planning processes that are related to MBS, sustainable urban drainage systems, green infrastructure, and wetlands. And in particular, her work emphasizes institutional dynamics, decision-making, which is going to be the focus of today's presentation, but also the interaction among diverse actors in addressing urban water challenges and climate change. So without further ado, I would like to thank you very much, Lina, for being here today with us, and the floor is all yours.
Thank you very much for the invitation and to be part of this webinar about nature-based solution. Today I will present on our study that has been published as in urban forestry and urban greening. And this is an academic output from a research project that have abbreviation REPLAN, which has been, which focused, because the project is not ongoing, or at least in the last stage, together in research collaboration with VUP University in Brussels and Ruhr University Bochum in Germany. So good afternoon, everyone, and I will start, the presentation by presenting the background of the research. All of you know that it's not surprising to know, not something that you don't know, but to repeat a little bit, urbanization is accelerating, and as it is now, it's placing growing pressures on environmental system and society through such as biodiversity loss, climate impact, and strain on urban infrastructure and well-being. Addressing these challenges is not just about small improvements or isolated solutions, and require more than incremental fixes or technical fixes even. It actually requires a more fundamental transformation of how urban systems function. Institutional revolution. No, this is not something that you can find in the academic discourse, but it's like my understanding of what is fundamental transformation, in fact. So when we talk about transformation, since like the whole webinar is about, or the presentation is about transformative change, when we talk about transformation, we mean deep systemic changes in institutions, in social values, and how social, ecological, and technological systems interact. At the policy level, this shift is reflected in initiatives such as the Urban Green Deal, which promotes nature-based solutions as a part of a comprehensive approach to environmental change. It highlights solutions like green infrastructure and ecosystem-based approaches alongside broader systemic transformation as key pathways toward more sustainable and resilient city. Okay. So I'm not going to go through the slides because I think that Bilal, he has presented something or like described the concept and also provided the definition according to the EU Commission. But simply, nature-based solutions is about mimicking nature and using nature to address societal challenges while enhancing ecosystem services and supporting multiple goals: climate resilience, enhancing biodiversity and ecosystem restoration and services, human health and well-being. So this study focused on Stockholm region and require in Stockholm region, and despite like the potential of nature-based solutions in resolving many of the societal challenges, nature-based solutions require integration into spatial planning to be effective at the system level. And despite a strong policy, nature-based solutions remain weakly integrated into planning practice, which reveal a gap between ambition and implementation due to institutional and spatial constraints. And this is what this study has been focusing on. Why is nature-based solutions not fully integrated? And ask why this gap exists. It is therefore examine why this gap persists by analyzing how nature-based solutions are incorporated into spatial planning in Stockholm's municipalities, where planning authority is decentralized. Municipality in Stockholm or in Sweden, of course, has the monopoly power to over planning or over spatial planning, which of course can be a great advantage, but sometimes also it has some sort of limitations. So the aim of this study was formulated to understand how nature-based solutions are translated into planning policy, and to understand the conditions that enable or hinder nature-based solutions integration in practice. And it has addressed 3 questions that is of course are related to the aim. How is nature-based solutions reflected in planning documents? But also, how do planners perceive implementations? And what are the hinders or enablers for integration in practice? When we talk about sustainability transformation, it is perhaps we can say that transformations, as I mentioned a little bit before, entails fundamental system change. And sustainability transformations refer to a deep and structural changes in how our systems, such as urban planning, function. There has been a range of theoretical framework, like perhaps you have heard about at least one of them, the multi-level perspective, transition management, and the three spheres of transformation, the practical, political, personal, that help explain these changes. But there is no one single cohesive theory to explain transformative change. In this study, we simplify this complexity by using three complementary analytical approaches: the structural, systematic, and enabling. And together, they provide practical framework to understand how transformative changes happen and offer complementary lenses for understanding the conditions that our paper focus on and analyzing the integration of nature-based solutions in planning systems. So what are these three analytical approaches or analytical lenses to transformation? Transformation conditions, one can say, are categorized into three different approaches. The first approach is the structural, which focuses on large changes in political and economic system, essentially shifts in power and institutional foundations. And if you consider that we are living in globalized world, then we are talking about perhaps not even these changes in the foundation of politics and economy are expected to happen at the national level, but also at the global level. The second, which is the systematic approach, focuses on key system features, such as it can be planning system, institutional system, can be also urban infrastructure system. In any way, it focuses on system elements like drivers for change, levels for changes, and actors driven by a combination of technological and social innovations, progressive policy and societal factors. The third one is the systematic approach, which is the enabling approach. These approaches, they emphasize the role of people, it's more from bottom-up approach. The role of people, their capacity, the issue of leadership, knowledge, core values, and their collaborative relationships that open opportunities to challenge existing practices and drive transformative change. The enabling approaches highlight how change often emerges from practice through learning and collective action. But importantly to know that these approaches are interdependent, they are interconnected, interact with each other and reinforce each other in driving transformation change. So transformation change at one level cannot necessarily lead to perhaps a structural, I would say, but not, for example, the enabling approach, because they need some sort of authority and power to support the enabling approach. The methods that we use, and regarding the research design and the steps that we use to fulfill the aim of this study, is mixed methods approach, which combine systematic document analysis, and here we are talking about the comprehensive plans of municipalities, and focus group discussions. The document analysis provides the quantitative dimension of the study, while the focus group discussions add a qualitative insights. In the first methodological step, the document analysis, We analyzed 26 municipal comprehensive plans. In the Stockholm region, since the focus on Stockholm region, we have 26 municipalities. And we decided about time frame from 2010 to 2022. And this time frame was selected based in the introductory or the entry of nature-based solutions, perhaps, and green infrastructure timing in policy discourses and academic discourses. To ensure a broader contextual understanding, we also included relevant regional and national policy documents, together with the 26 municipal comprehensive plans. We identified 9 nature-based solutions, relevant keywords. As perhaps Bilal explained, I mean, nature-based solutions is an umbrella concept. So within this umbrella concept, it includes many other terms. But nature-based solution as such is not, it's unlikely to be found, at least this is what we thought, because it has been introduced not long time ago, but recently. So we identified 9 nature-based solutions relevant keywords, which were carefully selected and validated through both literature and practitioners' input. Nature-based solution, the term itself or the concept itself, green infrastructure, blue-green infrastructure, ecosystem service, biodiversity, climate adaptation, sustainable stormwater management and stormwater solutions, green structure, and blue structures. And the last 2 terms were added from the practitioners, not something that we developed from the literature. The material was analyzed using Vivo, a software, which allowed us to examine both the frequency of nature-based solutions relevant terms and their contextual meaning. In particular, we coded how these terms are defined. This is when it comes to the contextual meaning, the context of including those terms in the policy documents. How they are defined, what functions they serve, and how they are linked to policy and practical planning examples. Regarding the focus group discussion, which is the second methodology step, we conducted focus group discussion with planners from 5 municipalities. Those 5 municipalities include Haninge. Perhaps it's not necessary to know, but it's also can be interesting to know. Haninge, Nynäshamn, Sollentuna, Solna, and Värmdö. And these municipalities were selected carefully, in fact, to reflect the different contextual conditions, ensuring variation in planning practice and local contextual characteristics. The discussion with those stakeholders brought together participants from multiple municipal sectors and focus on 3 main themes for discussion. First, their knowledge and understanding of nature-based solutions. Second, issues related to governance and collaboration, both within and between municipal organizations. And third, the main challenges and opportunities they experience in implementing nature-based solutions in practice. The discussion data was analyzed using an inductive coding approach in Vivo, developing codes and themes that we could see repeated. This analysis, however, was guided by 3 analytical lenses, which is to link to the analytical lenses that we decided before, the structural, systematic, and enabling factors, which help structure and interpret our empirical data. Overall, the connection between those 2 steps helps to identify key conditions that support or constrain the integration of nature-based solutions in urban planning and transformation processes. It's also allow us to capture both formal policies and practical experiences by connecting how planning documents frame nature-based solutions and how it's actually understood and implemented in municipal practice. Sorry for this, but I have found that I haven't been on video. My apology for this. It wasn't intentional, just I didn't pay attention. Regarding the empirical finding, and the first step, integration of nature-based solutions in planning document. The overall take of nature-based solutions in planning documents is that nature-based solutions related concepts are widely integrated. Although the term nature-based solutions itself is rarely used explicitly. Instead, municipalities refer more often to green structure, biodiversity, and ecosystem services. Also, there is a noticeable variation across municipalities, which I'm going to show, later on the next slides. This variation influenced by municipal planning timelines, because not all those comprehensive plans were produced at the same time, socioeconomic context, and local environmental conditions. For instance, Haninga, Solentuna, and Hudinga show relatively high integration, while Ninasham and Varmdu show lower levels. Over time, from 2010 to 2022, there is a clear increase in the use of nature-based solutions relevant terminology, which reflects stronger alignment with EU, national, and regional policy agendas. And here's the graph the figure that shows the frequency of locating, mentioning those terms, the 9 terms that we explored or investigated in the 26 municipalities. As you can see, perhaps, like some municipalities, they included only 7 terms, while others included about 154 terms. This does not necessarily imply that there has been integration of nature-based solutions in the one that found with high frequency. It can be mentioned, and this is the limitation of the method, they can be mentioned only as, for example, a descriptive term of what those municipalities have in terms of ecosystem or like green structure or blue structure. When it comes to the contextual analysis and framing and informative codes of nature-based solutions, and if you remember, we wanted to focus on 2 and 3 things: the definition, the functions, examples, policy, and actors. This slide shows how nature-based solutions are framed in planning documents. Overall, nature-based solution as a single concept is mainly on what nature-based solution, is not explicitly and clearly defined, but rather mainly approached in a functional way. The focus has been on what nature-based solutions do, particularly in relation to climate adaptation, stormwater management, and ecosystem functions. In practice, nature-based solutions are embedded within the existing planning concept. Terms such as green infrastructure and blue infrastructures are used extensively in the Swedish context. And these terms are even, I would claim or argue that they are locally used or geographically used concept within the Swedish municipalities. While climate adaptation and sustainable stormwater management appear relatively frequently. As you can see from this graph, we didn't analyze the contextual factors for all the terms. but we decided to focus on only 5 themes because the others were used extensively and there was no meaning to analyze the other terms, particularly that they would require a huge time to analyze them and code them. So in practice, or overall conclusion, nature-based solution is not explicitly and clearly defined, but rather mainly approached in functional and practical way. The focus is mainly on what, as I mentioned, nature-based solution does, particularly in relation to climate change, adaptation, stormwater management, and ecosystem service. And they remain implicit, unevenly defined, and primarily framed through their functions. So we come to the empirical findings of the focus group discussions. And here, as you remember, we decided to discuss 3 themes. One of these themes, understanding and use of nature-based solutions in practice. And the first column present the findings from the focus group discussions in how nature-based solutions are understood in planning practices. The nature-based solution is generally recognized among practitioners. So it's not something that they didn't relate to. However, it's interpreted differently depending on the actor and their role. Importantly, to know that the term itself is rarely used explicitly in everyday planning practices, according to the participants. When it comes to implementation in practice, we could see some variation across municipalities as well, which is something that would align with the planning or our analysis with the planning documents. For example, Solna and Solentuna show higher familiarity and stronger advocacy for integrating nature-based solutions, while Haninge and Nynäshamn and Värmdö demonstrate a more moderate level of integration. Even though that Haninge in the planning document analysis show the highest frequency of using the terms in their documents. In practice, nature-based solution is mainly applied through concrete measures, such as stormwater management and the development of green spaces. It is typically embedded within individual projects rather than driving or shaping planning processes more broadly. In a nutshell, there is a strong emphasis on technical and functional solutions of nature-based solutions, or the functional side of nature-based solutions, which reinforce the idea that nature-based solution is used in a pragmatic way rather than a clearly defined strategic concept that is being used for transformative change. Highlighting the main factors shaping nature-based solutions in practice, the focus group discussions reveal on different factors that can be also categorized as following our analytical lenses as the structural, systematic, and enabling levels. Starting with the structural factors, policy, the pressures from EU, national levels, and international sustainability discourses have a key driving role in implementing and integrating nature-based solutions. However, while national policies provide a common baseline, implementation often depends on balancing economic and environmental priorities in land use planning and access to external funding to support sustainability initiatives. These 2 issues perhaps are the most challenging and often problematic. Systematic factors are the most influential, such as insufficient cross-sector collaboration, mainly between the different administrations, planning, environment, and infrastructure, reliance on existing legislation that can limit innovation, and here where it's like the flexibility also in implementing can be an advantage and enabling factor. In addition, the lack of policy tools and coordination across governance levels that play a central role in enabling implementation. I mean, despite the, sometimes I feel like a little bit, it can be a little bit confusing. While practitioners, they highlight the lack of policy tools. In research community and researcher and university, we know that there have been many tools that could be supporting planning, but how to link to practice perhaps is the challenge. Finally, enabling factors are often decisive in integrating nature-based solutions. Political leadership stands out as the strongest driver for municipalities to embark on ambitious nature-based solutions projects. At the same time, planning culture, the municipal planning culture, the local planning culture, and the local conditions and available resources. And when I talk about available resources, here I'm talking about natural resources, because those municipalities, they have a lot of nature or green spaces. They perhaps see not the necessity of integrating nature-based solutions, and they focus on more, for example, attracting urban dwellers and citizens. Financial and human resources are also lacking. And this is shape how nature-based solutions are prioritized and applied. Knowledge training and citizen engagement further strengthen or weaken the implementation capacity. The key finding is that nature-based solution in practice is project-based, shaped by existing planning structures and local municipal capacity and context, with a clear gap between policy ambition and implementation. And here, perhaps where the figure gives some sort of overview of the focus group discussion findings on the structural, systematic, and enabling factors that either facilitate or embedded the integration of nature-based solutions and municipal planning. Coming to the discussion, here I want to focus on the conditions that shape and constrain the transformative change. The structural conditions found to be that the EU and the national policies play an important role in driving agenda setting. Definitely, that's something that is definite. However, their impact is limited by the lack of strategic coherence and insufficient financial support. And this is perhaps something that municipalities could relate to in different way and in different extent. At the systemic level, there is a clear need for stronger legislation and more effective planning tools. Cross-sector and multi-level governance are considered important by practitioners, which they are not ideal or optimal, because the current system is still characterized by lack of coordination and alignment across planning processes and planning levels. At the enabling level, which is particularly decisive at the municipal scale, political will and leadership are essential factors. In addition, municipal planning culture and local context strongly, as perhaps previously mentioned in the findings, strongly shape the outcomes. And knowledge, institutional capacity, and collaboration also play a key role in enabling implementation by the municipalities. The key insight here that there is a lack of systematic and structural support. While the enabling approach largely depends on municipal institutional capacity, available human and financial resources, and broader socio-ecological conditions. So it's up to municipalities and their capacity to implement and political ambition to implement or not. And here I want again to discuss the limits to transformative or of integrating nature-based solutions. I apologize. I think here the limits to integration of nature-based solutions. It doesn't have to be transformative. Sorry for that. Obviously, that there is a clear gap between the strong policy discourse and the weak practical integration. Nature-based solutions, while they are strongly promoted in policy, they remain conceptually diffuse and is often applied indirectly through existing planning terms rather than as clearly defined approach. Municipal autonomy contributes to the fragmented and uneven implementation across contexts. At the same time, there is a persistent tension between the economic development and environmental goals, as planning is still largely influenced by market-driven logic, which I would argue that this is a big structural barriers, not only to Sweden, but also elsewhere. Weak alignment across planning levels further reinforced this fragmentation. As a result, nature-based solution is not yet embedded as a core planning approach. Instead, it tends to operate as an add-on within the existing system. So it doesn't transform the system, neither it's transforming the city. Overall, the integration remains incremental rather than transformative. And the core, perhaps, insight here that nature-based solutions can only become transformative when structural, systematic, and enabling conditions are aligned, as we previously stressed in the analytical or the conceptual foundation for transformation changes, requiring a system-wide change rather than isolated municipal projects. I want to stop here, even because the conclusions, even though that they are formulated in terms of conclusion, but I would say they are more or less like, the ideas of the conclusions have been also delivered. So I stop here. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Lina, for your presentation. Then I think I will ask Bilal to come here for the question and answer session that we will have now. So I don't know, can you maybe stop sharing, Lina, just to see
Yes,
this?
definitely. Okay, thank you.
I noticed that we do not have right now anything in the chat, if I'm not mistaken. So maybe we can open the floor to the people that have followed the presentation here. If you have any questions or any comments that could help us in starting the discussion. Yes, we have a question over there.
Thank you. And congratulations, Aidan, for your research. And your notes were very technical regarding research about hydrological modeling. And you present in a greener city than we used to study or analyze. I'm saying that because I'm from the state of São Paulo, Brazil, and we have a different and complex situation there. And when you have a kind of this situation, probably the indicators, the systems, and the entrances in the modeling are completely different. And in this case, I don't know if you had the opportunity to study another area like an industrialized or metropolitan area to expand, to understand the complex systems can be. So my question in this case is, if you have another experience and with your methodology, your framework, okay?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much for this challenging question. So, so personally, I don't have, let's say, experience, or we had an experience in Stockholm. So the same case study that the GIU presented, but even then we focused on a very small district. And again, the challenge here, when you are thinking in terms of the actual geodesign, so there is a big trade-off between the complexity that you can represent, especially in this real-time assessment. Of course, in the first step as the hydrological modeling, you can go as much in depth as of course as needed, because that's not an interactive. So I totally agree with you that you need the level of complexity that is, of course, needed, depending on the availability of resources, to gain a systematic understanding of the challenge. But then once you have this understanding, when you need to implement it in the actual tool, there is a trade-off there. So you have to simplify your models. And the key part here is really actually the transparency, or in clearly communicating the uncertainties that are related to your tool, so that the participants are aware of the decisions that they are making. Yeah, I don't know if this addresses your concern.
Thank you very much. Is there any other question here in the room, or also our Zoom participants? I don't see. Yes, we have another question here.
I'm here again. And Professor Lina, thank you so much for bringing your experience for us into this case. I think you present a new, I don't know if a new approach or an evolution of the concept of sustainability through an analytical perspective or lens. And when we talk about sustainability, resilience, and Stockholm is a benchmark in this case, and as a reference for us. And you focus in a surgical and a questioning way. I would like to know, when we are talking about cities, indicators, documents, public policies, it's a little bit easier than we can imagine, because this concept, this transformative concept, it can be a kind of complex when we are talking about people or the society. In this case, I would like to know, what is your opinion on the effectiveness of this transformative concept in a local, in a place, independently, the where are we talking about? Just your opinion.
Just to be sure about your question, do you mean like, the effectiveness of, or to which extent that really nature-based solution can lead to transformative change? Is that your question? Or the effectiveness of implementation or of integration of nature-based solution within the current complexity?
Yeah, actually, Professor Lina, I understood that you present a kind of steps to develop the framework you presented, and in which point, for example, do you think it's important to discuss this concept with the society? because perhaps when we are talking about theory or empirical, it's a little bit easier because we are talking with the stakeholders or expertise people. But when we transpose this theory to reality in daily routine, my question is that, what is your opinion? I don't know, probably it's a difficult question because we are sharing, we are talking here. So I would like to know if you have an opinion in this case, how to expose this theory to our daily routine. It's not
how to integrate them in our daily routine, or how to communicate?
Yeah. How to become this more practical?
Okay. I would say it's very complex because I try to focus on one key challenge, which is, we have land use. We have scarce lands, for example, in the Stockholm region or Stockholm municipality. And we have population growth as well in the cities. In addition, of course, that when we urbanize, when we go to more urbanized area, we have to have more urban infrastructure, transport, roads, and there is some sort of all the time some sort of tension between urbanization and maintaining the green spaces and areas. So this land use conflict and prioritizing the economic drivers, like most of the time, is add to the complexity of integrating nature-based solutions in practice in daily life. It's very complicated and complex. And unless that we have planning system that could value the environment and the society more than the economy, which they are, of course, interlinked. They are not separated. It's unlikely that they are going to be mainstream in the planning system. So there will be all the time this kind of trade-off and balancing between different interests and different and managing different intentions together. And it's about optimization and the need for optimization, and needs also more a multi-level governance, which is, as I mentioned, it's a challenge. How to connect to the national level, what kind of institutions that they can connect to the national level in a way that can transform the planning system to more towards integrating nature-based solutions more and more. So it is part of the complexity. And to really answer your question, I think that what in Sweden, at least, perhaps what we will be witnessing is incremental, growth of nature-based solutions in cities, even though that there are a lot of constraints. I do remember that once I had an interview with developers. There is certain, I would say, organization here between developers and the municipalities. They sell the land to developers, and according to certain conditions, and they ask developers to implement the plans. So when I met developers, they said that unless we manage the multifunctionality of space, it's unlikely that we are going to implement nature-based solution. I'm not going to have this piece of land for having a park that would deal with and have more green space that would deal with climate change or groundwater. Particularly if we consider that there is a lack also of alignment between different policies, between different sectors, and between different levels as well. So that's also at the complexity. And particularly, and all cities, not necessarily Stockholm, but all cities, they make priorities to the economic growth and economy values in planning more than the environmental issues, particularly, and Bilal know that very well, that ecosystem services like social cohesion and those kind of soft added values is not easy to be valued in the decision making and the cost benefit analysis of a project in monetary values. So they become marginalized. For example, cities. I mean, one of the in one focus group discussion, they mentioned that why the government they subsidize the IT industry, but they don't subsidize implementing nature-based solutions in the cities. Why they subsidize the IT industry? It's a political priority. So it also depends on the political priorities. So it's that the context is really complex, and unless we deal with those structural issues and systematic issues, I would say that nature-based integrations will remain fragmented. To which extent that it acts as like complementary infrastructure with other urban infrastructure is something that I cannot say, but is not going to be mainstreaming without dealing with those structural and systemic factors. Perhaps I took so long time to explain, but I hope at least that I could answer your question.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Lina. Do we have any other question here in the room? If not, I don't know if I can ask something very quickly to our three speakers, maybe just to finish today's session, and then going back again, of course, to the topic, which is transformative change. And I think that sometimes one of the fair critiques that we have when we're trying to implement nature-based solutions in urban areas is that we're risking using them just like a quick fix to maybe resolve very complex challenge, as we have seen in the three presentations today. So my question is, how could we help the concept of nature-based solutions move to this very quick, very easy perspective of using them for everything to actually create some transformative approach in terms of technological, economic, but also the social perspective? So based on your research on the challenges that you have encountered, how could we transform the concept for the better, let's say?
Yeah, the very difficult question again. So, so from our experience was, the participants were quite skeptical about MBS because we are talking about Asmara, water scarcity issues. The key problem is the infrastructure. So when you ask them to talk about the MBS, it's like taking a side road. Yeah. But then when they go through the process and try and they gain this kind of systematic understanding and linkages between the ecology, the watershed, the infrastructure, and the users, they start seeing the value of the concept. So we are not talking about MBS as the specific intervention, but really as a concept that at the end we rely and depend on nature, and if we let's say restore those ecological processes, it's really about taking care about the watersheds that we depend on, and that's a kind of a different understanding of the concept, not as like the technical fix, but really at the recognizing the actual value and contribution of ecosystems to our well-being. Yeah. And that gives people a different different idea and understanding. So I guess that's where we really need to focus more on this umbrella concept, and of course recognizing also that there are so many other interests at play, and at the end it will be a sort of compromise between these different forces that are at play.
Thank you, Bilal. I don't know, Lina, if you would like to complement anything to Bilal's answer. And about how to make MBS more transformative?
I think how to make it transformative in reality, in practice, you mean, or how to apply it? Okay. I think it's not easy to answer. It's really challenging question. Of course, there has to be some sort of political support. I mean, like political will, political priorities. It has to be political priority, political will. We have to introduce, as Bilal mentioned, like, you know, in the beginning they were skeptical about the like nature-based solutions, and this is perhaps human nature. Like, you know, when you are introduce a new concept that you don't know what they are about, you feel like that you want to step back, and this is perhaps, and this is something that they have been all the time, like, you know, discussing with Bilal. I believe that throwing many concepts that in practice are so much related to practitioners is a problem. I mean, here I'm not reducing the added value or the value of having many terms, but as long as we try to explain them, we try to explain them for those who are implementing them. But what we do, I mean, even here in Sweden, when you go to practitioners and planners, like nature-based solutions, I mean, like every time the academic people or scholars, they go and do some sort of research with municipalities and planners, and every time they go with a new concept, like green infrastructure, blue structure, nature-based solutions, and there is no, like, you know, knowledge support to understand what are the differences, at least in applications. So this is what creates some sort of overlap between those concepts or those terms. And as Bilal mentioned, like, you know, nature-based solution is umbrella concept. It's to align with nature, to restore nature. So perhaps if we provide some sort of disconnection, some sort of knowledge to practitioners that they can use, that can enhance at least their understanding in practice and how they can use it. But still, even if the knowledge in itself is not enough, of course, to support nature-based solutions as transformative contexts. It's as I mentioned, they have nature-based solutions have to be incubated, like, you know, in planning system, and the framework for planning systems now, they are not up to date with incubating nature-based solutions as mainstream solutions. And this is because of the challenges that I mentioned when it comes to about land use conflict and about economic prioritizations and political priorities. I don't know if I have added something to Bilal's contribution.
Absolutely have. Thanks a lot, Lina. And maybe Yayu, if you want to say something about this from your perspective, also from the perspective of justice and distributive justice.
Wait a second. Okay. Yeah, planning for nature-based solutions for transformative change, it definitely required political or institutional change. But from my side, I personally more focuses on the technical side. For example, to provide I think stakeholders and policymakers also need evidence-based information of, for example, the cost and benefit analysis between nature-based solution and let's say engineering solutions or conventional solutions or so on, or the mixed solutions of nature-based solutions and great infrastructure solutions. And also both over time and space, because you can especially for nature-based solution is not you plant a tree is not just it need time to grow. Yeah. So yeah, that's my little thought, my little conclusions for the transformative nature-based solutions.
Thank you very much, Yayu. So I don't know if we have any more questions. If not, yes, we have one more.
Thank you. I know we are tired, so I will try to be very brief. Poverty and natural-based solutions. It's a challenge. You mentioned, Yayu, the dimension of justice in applying the natural-based solutions, but I would like to compare the two different contexts you are presented today. A European Union context, let's say, like Sweden and Stockholm in particular, and the East Africa context based on a different institutional system and sensitivity towards the role of environment. My question is, would be very large, but is practically how to adopt to convert the natural-based solution as an instrument to fight poverty in terms of vulnerability, not only in the totally poor context like could be mentioned Asmara, but the neighbor and the more poor neighbor in the capital cities in European Union or North America. Because many times you are dividing the world in poor and poor countries and rich countries only, but don't forget that we have to take care only of the neighbor, the more poor, the poorest neighbor in Stockholm or in Rome or in Paris. How to deal with this challenge? The question is for both on all the three, let's say.
First of all, thank you for your question. Yeah, it's just a very challenging aspect. For me, it is also very, let's say, controversial or a very valuable topic to discuss about the relations between nature-based solutions and green gentrifications. It's also about the poverty, the disparity between the spatial disparity of property and wealthy areas. And yeah, I would say we need I think there is also already some research on the effect of nature-based solutions on green gentrifications, and it need further research and studies on how nature-based solutions can deal with the let's say spatial justice, not only environmental justice, but also justice in other aspects. I don't know, but I hope my questions, my answers can answer a little bit of this challenge. Yeah. But I think it's a huge
So
challenge.
just to give you an example, in order to be practical, I'm thinking of three different contexts. Villasano Tower in Trento. Trento is in the top of ranking for the well-being, but there's a lot of elders suffering energy poverty and not capable to defend themselves from the heat waves during summers. And I'm speaking of Trento. The second example, Tor Bella Monaca, neighbor in Rome. There's a lot of entire buildings without any plants for the combat the heat waves during long summers in Rome. And the third example is the well-developed countries like Germany, and maybe you know, the situation of refugees in many times in the past, but even in the present, is to live and to try to survive also to the climate conditions. They are gathered in neighbor like a packaging of people, not people living with dignity. So 3 different examples, 3 different contexts in which we could apply the techniques on measuring, analyzing context, and applying as a response the nature-based solution for this problem. Thank you.
You mean among these 3 contexts, which would be more applicable for nature-based solutions? That's the question, or
Yeah, I think that the question is how could they be used? How can MBS be used in order to address some of these issues in these different areas? That's my question. Could we use nature-based solutions to address, for example, heat vulnerability in a very vulnerable area in Europe, in the Americas? That's basically the question, right?
Yeah. I believe for climate risks like heat waves and flooding, nature-based solutions can is able to address these challenges. Yes, in the more vulnerable areas. But for poverty, it's a very complex. It's more complicated to me.
Can I add perhaps to
Yeah, sure.
Thank you. I would say it's not about how to include nature-based solutions or plan nature-based solutions and implement them in those areas in order to deal with vulnerability. But if the politicians really want to deal with vulnerability, then nature-based solutions can be one approach. So it's a political question, in fact. It's not about how. Once the political decision and the political priority is there, and they want to deal with this, with the vulnerability in certain districts, then they can do it, or at least they can try to do it the best that could be done. In one of the research projects that I was involved in, which focus on Barcelona and Berlin and Stockholm. One case study that we focused on Barcelona, that there was a poorly perceived neighborhood that is characterized by high crime and people vulnerability. And the city of Barcelona, they try to do what they can do, and then they try to transform and try to sync between different urban system by placing some sort of stormwater collecting and having a green wall in the neighborhood to. I'm not saying, of course, that this green wall has transformed the whole neighborhood to normal one, at least, or but still there have been some sort of trials by the planning department in Barcelona to enhance the social environment of and the well-being in that neighborhood. So it's not about how. It has potential, but it's about if politicians want to do that or not. It's a political decision and a political driver. So that's important, I think, in any context, whether this context is in Asmara or in Sweden or anywhere. And frankly, I mean, the definition according to the EU Commission, they describe nature-based solutions as cost effective, and I don't think so. I don't think so that they are cost effective at least from the cases that they have ambition and they implemented nature-based solutions in different urban areas and urban development projects. They were so expensive to have nature-based solutions because nature-based solutions are also they embed uncertainty, technical uncertainty, and also we still lack knowledge about how they perform and who should monitor them, which type of organization that should monitor them. So the cost effectiveness issue that is claimed in the EU Commission definition, I would say it's not really at this time is misleading. So when nature-based solutions are implemented particularly in built environment, it has been challenging because how and where to build nature-based solutions. In the new urban areas, it has been also challenging in different ways because they are costly to implement and they have to gather knowledge and to be accountable for the solutions that they decide about. And this is also another challenge, and has these kind of implementation has led to high cost property, which means more segregation even, because it's like who can afford high value of property where nature-based solutions are implemented. It's only the one that can afford it. So it's little bit complex, like, you know, to give a short answer and direct answer to your question. That's, I think I stop here. Mm.
Yeah, you know, this to add to what we have already covered. So I think we have always to be aware that the nature-based solutions are just part of the story. So we have technical solutions, we have MBS and other policy-based or behavioral solutions that we need to implement. So as any solution, when the political will is there, it can be implemented and do the job. For the specific case of Asmara, when we think about the connection or the nexus between poverty and MBS, is thinking in terms of the, let's say, of the relationship between the areas of ecosystem service provision and benefit. So in the case of water, you have the watershed where water is basically collected, and the city that is benefiting. So you can think of some financial and governance mechanisms for compensating the people in the watershed. So the rural communities that can be engaged in the implementation of MBS, like terracing, reforestation, and so on. And this would somehow enhance their means of livelihood, and it's a way of addressing issues of poverty. And in a study that we published, we clearly show that there are trade-offs, because if you want to optimize the ecosystem service for the city or for the rural communities in terms of the poverty reduction goals, there are trade-offs, and when you have trade-offs, it's a matter of political decisions of where you want to allocate your resources. Yeah, I hope this kind of question addresses. Yeah.
So thank you very much. I think we're actually running out of time. So thank you very much again to Yayu, to Lina, to Bilal for the presentations. And thank you for your time, and to everyone here for being here today. And if you have any more questions, you can approach them. They are going to be here. And I wish you all a very good afternoon. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Lina. Thank you, Jay.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you,
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you so much.
and have a good evening. Okay, bye.